Hi, 3 and 4-year-old leaders. We're preparing for July 28th. This lesson is called David Sinned and Restored. In this lesson, we're going to begin to introduce the story of Bathsheba. And I realize that some of the words that are a part of Bathsheba may be challenging with little ones. So I'm going to kind of give you some words that you can use, and you can use my words if you'd like to. Also want to point out that God's word is not wrong, and it's not wrong to share God's word with kids. And so maybe there's parts of it that you don't want to spend as much time on, so you could use my words, or you could also use God's words. It's okay to read from the Bible and to share with kids the story that we are learning today. And ultimately, honestly, what we want kids to see in this is what the process of sinning and being forgiven. Because as we begin to understand that now, that as when we make a mistake, we need God's forgiveness. We have that through Jesus, and that there is a process, but that there are times where we still have to deal with the consequences of our sin. So I'm going to talk you through the story really quick so that you have a way to share it with your kids. David is up on his balcony of his house, and as he's up on his balcony, he looks out and he sees this beautiful woman taking a bath on another balcony, and he decides that he likes what he sees and he wants her. When he figures out who she is, he also realizes that she is married to a man named Uriah, who is a part of David's army as one of his elite soldiers. And that alone should have been something that should have told him that because she's married, that he should not get her. But that didn't stop David, and he went after her anyway. And he assumed that his sin would go unnoticed until Bathsheba showed up and told him that she was pregnant. And with Uriah, her husband, gone to war, it was obvious that the baby was not her husband's baby. So David called Uriah home and requested for him to go be with his wife. But Uriah refused, especially with all his men in battle. So he went back to the war. And David was kind of still in a pickle, trying to cover up his sin. And so he instructed the army commander to position Uriah in the most violent part of the battle, so he would be killed. This time, David's plan worked. Uriah was killed, and David took Bathsheba as his wife. But God knew David's sin, and he sent the prophet Nathan to confront David. It's through this confrontation that David confesses his sin and writes in Psalm 51 about his change of heart. And through David's confession of realizing that he sinned, he also needed to figure out that he needed a heart change and forgiveness. And so God wanted that heart change. God wanted David's heart to change so he would not want to sin again. That didn't mean that God didn't forgive him. God forgave David, but there were still consequences to his sin. Obviously, Bathsheba lost her husband, and David had another wife. And so there were consequences to his sin. In your small group time today, you have a fun little activity to begin with. You're going to have some sheep masks and some pool noodles and some tape. It's possible that you still have a tape path on your floor. Our carpets are getting cleaned at some point too, so they may not be there. You may have to tape another path. But you use your tape to mark a path. A few of your kids are going to get the sheep masks, and a few of your kids are going to be shepherds with their staffs, their pool noodle staffs. Now remind kids that shepherds, good shepherds, do not beat their sheep into submission. They use quiet, gentle words to help direct their sheep. And what we're hoping through learning this activity is next week, when we finish this series in Psalm 23, that we'll begin to see that God was creating a picture for us of the way he takes care of us with soft, gentle words and in soft, gentle ways most of the time. He doesn't usually beat us into submission. Our consequences, like David, are usually because of our sin. All right. So that is your social activity. If it doesn't work for you to start out with that activity, use it at the very end as a way to kill some time until parents get there, but also as a way for kids to interact with each other and have fun together. Your small group activity may seem a little odd, but don't worry about it. We didn't buy the most precious plant for you to use for this activity. What you're going to have is a plant similar to this that has lots of leaves on it. And what you're going to encourage kids to do is to okay, so you can do this in one of two ways. And that all these instructions are in your paper. You can take your kids outside and have them pick leaves off of things outside. We don't have too many plants that you can pick leaves off of outside, honestly, around either of our campuses, any of our campuses. And so that's why I provided you with a fake plant. So you may want to have them pretend that they are walking around, and so they can close their eyes and pretend about how they're walking around. And if you're doing that, ask the kids to close their eyes and imagine what they see as they walk out of the room. Encourage creativity. As you walk near the plant or bush, ask each kid to grab a couple of leaves off the bush. Obviously, those leaves can't go back on. That's the whole illustration. We want kids to see the picture of what happens when we allow sin to take over, all right? So what they're going to do is grab some leaves, and they can keep their leaves, especially since it's not a real plant. If you're going to take them outside, make sure to post for parents in case there's some kids that have some allergies, so you don't have their kid picking the thing that they're most allergic to. All right, and then ask kids to try to put the leaves back on the tree after they pulled it off. Are they able to do that very easily? No, and tape's not even going to keep it alive, right? Tape doesn't have the vitamins and nutrients that plants need to keep them alive. Encourage the kids to share what they observe by trying to put the leaves back on the tree. Again, I'm hoping that this is a picture for kids to see that once we continue to sin, once we make choices that we can't necessarily go back and undo that choice. We can be forgiven. God does forgive us. God forgave us by giving us his son Jesus, who hides all of our sin from God once we believe in Jesus. But what we can't do is undo a sin necessarily. And so there are consequences. There are natural consequences. I know many of us believe consequence is always negative, and it may feel negative at times, but there's always a if-then kind of statement. If this, then this will happen. If I eat too much chocolate, I probably am going to feel very sick. That's definitely true for me. I don't know about you, but I don't eat chocolate because it makes me feel very sick. And so, you know, there are always a consequence. That's not necessarily a sin, but there is always a consequence when we choose to sin. So removing leaves from a plant is easy, but putting them back is impossible. We need our changed hearts that no longer want to sin, but we cannot change our own hearts, just like we cannot put leaves back on a plant. When we believe in Jesus, God forgives us because Jesus was punished for our sin when he died on the cross. Jesus changes our heart so that we no longer want to sin, and that's a daily thing for most of us. We need to daily be reminded that Jesus paid for our sin, and so we can choose to do differently every day. All right, here's your memory verse. No one is like you, Lord. You are great, and your name is mighty in power. Your signs, One more time, our no one is like you, Lord. You are great, and your name is mighty in power. Jeremiah 10:6. And you can pray with your kiddos, and you should have a coloring page with you today if you'd like to pass that out to the kids. I know that some of these coloring pages and activities are a little hard for our littlest ones, but we like for them to have these because of the resources on the back. There's a couple different things. First off, it explains to the parents what we taught. It gives them some activities that they can do at home, and it also directs them toward getting an app that helps them connect to the stories that we're teaching regularly. You can use that as a parent as well. Thank you for leading. Please get with me soon if you'd like to make any changes to your schedule for the fall. We're hoping that all of you are ready to continue leading with us, but I would understand if you need to change your schedule, or honestly, I'll understand anything. Don't be afraid. But I do want you to know that I love the way you lead, and that we would love to have you back if you're ready to lead some more. We'll talk to you soon.